All right, welcome to Bet the Edge. I'm Jay Croucher here with Drew Dinsick. Today, Drew, we're going to be talking about Giants, Bucs, 49ers, Packers, and then Sunday Night Football, Eagles, Rams also close out with our best bets. But let's start off with Giants, Bucs. Tommy Cutlets has been inserted. Daniel Jones mercifully removed, mercilessly, I guess. What do you think the downgrade is from Jones to Cutlets?
So Jones was pretty bad. And by the way, the community, we're calling him Tommy Giblets now because he will be a main feature on Thanksgiving against the Cowboys. I have all kinds of different opinions here, and I guess I should just start with, I think the downgrade from Jones to Tommy is meaningful. I think the decision to bypass Drew Lock is confusing. The way it's being postured by the organization is making it seem like they feel like they have a better chance to win with Tommy DeVito than they did with Drew Lock, which doesn't make any sense considering you signed Drew Lock knowing what you had in Tommy DeVito to be your backup. So I'm kind of trying to parse what is truth from fiction here and assuming that the Giants are not necessarily trying to win football games. And I think that's just the generally held belief here. And one of the reasons that this has drifted so aggressively, because even though the downgrade from Daniel Jones to Tommy DeVito moves the Giants from the 23rd, 22nd best offense to the 28th, it's still bad. And bigger issue is if the decision to start DeVito is not well liked in the locker room, right? If this is not a move that kind of some of the veterans, particularly the receiving and running backs, if they're upset, like, man, this is really going to hurt our opportunity to get paid. Next time we have to go after contracts because all of this, all of these stats are going to be compiled with a guy that can't necessarily move the offense. Then you could get a bit of a generalized quit out of the Giants here. And I think that's basically what the market is expecting. I think a fair price here, with the state of the Buccaneers in particular, the return of Mike Evans should be somewhere like in around 3.5 range. And so there is a healthy surcharge to lay the Buccaneers in this one. And I think it is entirely just based on the Giants' effort questions swirling. Tampa Bay, for what it's worth, has one of the worst defenses in the NFL, particularly one of the worst pass defenses. They haven't even really gone up against a murderer's row of quarterbacks, but they have been giving up an absolutely obscene success rate to the drop back passers. I think that Tommy DeVito is not necessarily doesn't really have the type of game that I would expect can exploit that. And in fact, if anything, if there is any truth in what Dable is saying and that he feels like he has a better chance to sustain offense with DeVito, it's because of presumably his mobility and his scrambling. And I think that does not play well into what the Buccaneers do well. So this could get ugly pretty quickly. If I had to have a play in this game, I'm probably taking Giants team total under. And I think the Buccaneers defense is ultimately a clear and obvious sell, but not for this game.
Do you think that anecdotally it felt like the Bucs were able to generate pressure a little bit more in recent weeks than they were at the start of the season or last year, where they had a very anemic pass rush? They're giving Mahomes issues in Kansas City in that primetime game. Do you think there's any hope to believe that the Bucs pass rush might be improved and that can mitigate some of the issues that they have in the back end?
It's really, really kind of boom or bust. They have to sacrifice a lot in the coverage to generate the pressure that they have generated. They have, and just kind of in general, a little bit of a mismatch in terms of personnel on this team and what Todd Bowles wants to do with his defense, which I think is leading to a lot of this. They have a true blue, no doubt, kind of borderline all pro and Vita Vea. Anchoring the interior pass rush and the interior run stop, and then everyone around him is really kind of underperformed to a degree. And I think the only kind of bright spot you can point to with the pass rush for the Bucs is Yaya Diaby. He's quick. He is deployed regularly in the blitz. Todd Bowles blitzes at an obscenely high rate, as everyone kind of knows and expects. But the other kind of folks that are kind of being tasked here to contribute are not doing well. It is noteworthy to me that some of the important pieces look like they're getting healthy here for the Bucs in the secondary. That they're going to have to continue to play, above expectation. The Zion McCollums of the world in particular are going to have to play above expectation. If we're going to need Jamel Dean back and see him look like the Jamel Dean of old. If the Bucs are going to make a run to try to close the gap on the Falcons, but ultimately, I think the pass rush should have a fine day against this Giants offensive line, which is nothing to write home about. DeVito may be able to scramble his way out of harm's way in general, but I think he's going to get tiny chunks, tiny gains as opposed to chunks. And I don't think that's going to be enough to sustain offense. So low expectations here for the Giants. And, oh, by the way, we haven't even mentioned, it's gonna be gross in your neck of the woods this weekend, man. Not looking great weather-wise for a game that if you are at a deficit here for the Giants and you have to start calling some passing plays and you have Tommy DeVito out there and 20-mile-an-hour winds, this could get ugly quick. And I think the kicking game is going to suffer. I think the total coming down is correct, and I think in general this is one that outside of collecting a little bit of data on whether Dable has lost, kind of the support of the veterans in the locker room because of this decision is kind of the key takeaway that I'm going to come up with from this game.
Okay, well, Drew, every day post Louis Hill in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area is a sunny day, but yes, the literal technical conditions, they may hurt Tommy DeVito and co. Also, by the way, Tommy DeVito, I believe he was sacked, I want to say 37 times in his 8 or 9 games last season. So
it was bad,
he's certainly not afraid of taking a sack. So, he may have some issues with the Todd Bowles blitz. All right, Notre Dame continues to march towards the college football playoff, and this Saturday night they take on Army at Yankee Stadium. NBC and Peacock will lead you up to kickoff starting at 7 p.m. Eastern. All right,
what a game! What a game!
Quite a game. Quite a game. Quite a stadium. My favorite stadium now, Yankee Stadium. The Packers are 2-point favorites against the 49ers, Drew, which is, I just on face value, considering that the Niners for going on 3 years now felt like the best kind of power rated team in the NFC, and now they are playing a game against the Packers where the market is saying that these teams are basically even on neutral. Are you surprised that this hasn't drifted towards Niners pick, or do you think this is reflective of Nick Bosa's uncertainty?
I think it closes Niners pick because I think Nick Bosa goes.
Okay.
In general, I bet the Niners here. I took the 2.5 points. I take a little bit of money line, but I'm mostly into the points here for the Niners. I think this is a decent spot for their offense to really shine against the Packers defense that I do not have a ton of respect for. This Packers defense is living and dying with the turnover. Most of that came earlier in the season, and now that there's a little bit of film on what the defense is trying to do, offenses are not having trouble sustaining drives against this Packers unit. And in the absence of Jair Alexander, there's really no matchups for the wideouts that the Niners have available here. The Christian McCaffrey injury is not necessarily concerning me. The Brock Purdy injury is a little bit. I think I'd like to hear reports about him, with a little bit of zip on the ball at practice today and tomorrow. But I think ultimately the Niners can pretty much pick their number here. It is hilarious that we have games all over the country affected by weather. One of the most beautiful games of the weekend will be at Lambeau, where it's going to be a balmy 45 degrees and no wind. But I think the Niners are poised to flex a bit offensively here against the Packers defense that's not up to the task. And then on the other side of the ball, if the Packers are able to keep themselves out of long distance, late down situations, then I would expect that they're going to be okay offensively as well. However, Nick Bosa, he matters a ton. My downgrade for the Niners defense is I take them from about 9th to about 19th. And you take Nick Bosa out of the mix because there's really just no other way for them to generate pressure. And I would very much like to hear good news in that regard. There is good news that Charvarius Ward will be available here for the 49ers. I think that matters a ton. He is an absolute difference maker as CB1, and he moves everybody down a notch in terms of their roles and responsibilities, which just helps everything overall. I think in general, Fred Warner is still having an all-pro campaign, and he's going to be able to stop the run to the degree that puts the Packers in difficult third down situations. And at that point, assuming we have a healthy Nick Bosa, or an effective Nick Bosa, then we should be able to get after Jordan Love and stop the real kind of high leverage plays from succeeding, particularly late in the game for the Packers. I think 47.5 is too low for this one. My fair would be in the 49 ballpark. So I like the Niners. I like the over. I like the Niners team total over. And I think in general, this is going to be a really good game. But your point about the Niners being dogs is pretty prescient. The only game they were under 3-point favorites this season was at Kansas, or was hosting Kansas City. And off the top of my head, I don't think they were dogs once last year. They were 1.5-point favorites at Pittsburgh and 2-point favorites in the Super Bowl. Everything else was outside of a field goal. So it has been a very, very long time since we have seen this Niners iteration come into a game expected to lose.
Yeah, this is the Purdy Shanahan reckoning these next 2 weeks, where on the road, outdoors against the Packers and the Bills, if they lose both, the season's done. If they split, it's season alive but shaky. And then if they win both, then they're back right in business. Do you think there's anything that's wrong with the Niners offense at the moment? Or do you think that it was just that, Jake Moody had a breakdown in Tampa Bay, and then against the Seahawks, just a weird game that was kind of thwarted a bit by Shanahan's conservatism?
Yeah, and penalties. They're sloppy. They're not playing anywhere close to the same sort of, professional football that we're used to seeing. And I mean, their backs are against the wall. You lose this game, your playoff probability drops to probably like 15%. Right now, I make the Niners. I'm only at just a hair under 40% that they even make the playoffs right now. They still have a path to victory in the NFC West. The way that I project the games this weekend, not high confidence in the Rams getting a win, as we'll talk about in a minute, but there's a very, very clear world where all of the teams in the NFC West are tied at 6-5 when we wake up on Monday morning, and that would be a lot of fun. So fingers crossed. But I think in general, the Niners have put themselves in a can't lose situation here, and first time in his career. Actually, second time in his career that Brock Purdy will be a dog. First time was the NFC Championship game against the Philadelphia Eagles, where he only lasted a few drives before. Yeah, was it a series? Yeah. So, not a lot to go on in terms of how these guys play when they're expected to perform poorly.
The greatest comeback player of the year case that never was, Brock Purdy, post elbow, which kept him out 6 months, but he didn't actually miss a game. All right. Well, speaking of your Rams, this Sunday night, 2 teams battle for playoff positioning when Jalen Hurts and the Eagles fly west for a clash with Matthew Stafford and the Rams. Coverage of the matchup begins at 7 p.m. Eastern, only on NBC and Peacock.
As you all know by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up to BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE, and you'll get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code BETEDGE. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your first bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code BETEDGE when you sign up. See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only, subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code BETEDGE and get your $1,500 first bet offer today.
Okay, let's talk about that Sunday night football game, Eagles-Rams. Rams season on the line-ish. Eagles probably 1 seed on the line. They really need to win this game if they want to stay alive in that race. Drew, I think the most interesting way to approach this game is that statistically it bears out that great offense overcomes great defense. That's why Patrick Mahomes was so defense agnostic in the years when he had Tyreek Hill and peak Travis Kelce, and it just didn't really matter. Matters, obviously, but not really in terms of what you're able to accomplish offensively. Statistically, Stafford and the Rams, when they've had all of Stafford, Kyron, Cooper Kupp on the field, they have been an all-time level offense. Do you think this offense is in the spot now where it's, again, not that it doesn't matter, but that the strength of the Eagles defense can be just mitigated by the overall efficiency of this Rams offense, or is the Rams offense shakier than that?
Ooh, man, you're giving me a tough question here. There certainly are shaky things about the Rams offense this year. I have long held a very market, a market high or rating higher than market on the Rams offense. And I've paid for it a couple times this season. It's come through for me as well in times, but it has almost always been sort of the case with the McVay offense, whether it was Goff or Stafford, that the better the pass protection is able to perform, the more superlative the overall efficiency is. And for the first half of the season, there were massive injuries to this Rams offense, suspensions, and they kind of wreaked havoc with the Rams being able to just be a functional unit offensively at times. And we saw some moments where it brought out the worst in Stafford to the tune of people wondering, well, is he just done? Is he washed? Do we need to really meaningfully downgrade him? And then he comes out against the Vikings, a blitz heavy approach, and just absolutely lights them up on Thursday Night Football. And I think that kind of maybe was a little bit of a false positive for me in terms of being, oh, nope, they're back. They're good. This is top 5. Because since then, it has been a little bit of an uneasy, uneasy performances. And specifically against the Patriots last week, like that's a defense that they should have had absolutely no issue hitting them with either meaningful wide receiver they could have hurt the Patriots with. Running attack should have been very effective against that unit, and it felt very, very labored. And it could have been situational, could have been playing early on the East Coast, that could have been a factor. But for whatever for whatever you want to take away from that, I do think you have to have a little bit of a skeptical view of what this Rams offense is right now. This is a very interesting test because there has been clear, obvious growth for the Eagles defense over the balance of this season. And I think the expectation coming into this year was they made obvious, awesome, high upside investments in the secondary through the draft and in free agency. It was an attempt to turn around a unit that had completely fallen apart. And you pair that with Vic Fangio, and the expectation was over the balance of the season, as these young players learn, as everybody kind of understands their roles and responsibilities inside a very complicated Vic Fangio system, this group is going to get very good. That looks to have been the case because they have performed really, really well. They took on a difficult task in Jaden Daniels and a white-hot Commanders offense last Thursday and handled them very well. And I think this is maybe the actual true test because you do have a two-headed monster at wide receiver for the Rams. You have an outstanding, backfield and run scheme for the Rams that is going to put a little bit more pressure on this defense. And if the Eagles defense comes through this test looking good, then you're thinking Super Bowl if you're a Philly fan. You're thinking 1 seed is in reach if you're a Philly fan. But I kind of still need to see proof of concept that they can do it against a unit that is as talented as LA. And I think Stafford still has a fastball. I think Stafford still is an absolutely, outstanding field general, decision maker, and can throw some, perfect passes along the sidelines, deep down the field to receivers who can create separation. I love that they have easy buttons in the passing game with the short, outside stuff to Puka Nacua, who then, is an extremely tough player to tackle with as he has a head of steam, coming to the second level. And I think in general, the Rams are the perfect test for this unit. And right now, I don't have a strong sense of which way it breaks.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting matchup because I think both of these quarterbacks are very vulnerable to their performance being impacted by pressure. And I think both quarterbacks will be under pressure in this game because Stafford, the weakness of the O-line relatively for the Rams, and Jalen Carter and Bryce Huff having turned the corner. I think the Eagles will have Stafford under siege a little bit, and that makes me a little bit concerned that it's going to resemble the Dolphins game in some ways, where Stafford was not very good. And then Jalen Hurts, who it's been washed away because of he was solid in the second half against Washington and Saquon's heroics and all the other discourse around Washington. But Jalen Hurts was atrocious in the first half of that Thursday night game against the Commanders. And a lot of it was him doing the Jalen Hurts thing where he starts to feel pressure and he starts drifting back in the pocket and then throwing the ball away. And so I think that with the way that Jared Verse has kind of revolutionized that Rams pass rush, and now it is a much improved unit, I do think that Jalen Hurts is not going to have it super easy. And the Rams, they've gotten a lot better at containing explosive runs as well, which is, that stuff is a little bit noisy, but at the same time, they're not the disaster defense that it looked like they would be when Aaron Donald retired. So I think this is going to be an uglier and lower scoring game perhaps than people might think when you just look at the superstar names and all the skill position talent and the fact that it's in a dome and all of that.
So you're buying the Eagles defense then?
I think the Eagles defense is very impressive. And I think that the game I would read most into that, supporting that kind of idea, is the Bengals game, where they really gave Burrow a lot of issues. And I understand T. Higgins wasn't out there, but look what Joe Burrow did to Baltimore without T. Higgins a couple of weeks ago. So I think I don't think it's like a top 3 defense in the league, but I do think it's a top 7, top 8 defense, kind of in the realm like the Steelers, that type of level of defense, and certainly better than the Rams. So I think this is a legitimately very good defense. Let's jump to our best bets. I will kick us off. I am taking Kansas City -11, Drew, in Carolina. I don't understand why this line isn't higher. The way I would think about this, and these things are never perfect, you can't draw one-to-one comparisons, but I think it's good in terms of asking the questions to compare to previous lines. The Giants in Munich closed 6.5-point favorites against the Panthers. Home field worth 1.5 points or so. So say that the Panthers would have been 5-point dogs at home against the Giants. There's only a 6-point gap between the Panthers and between the Chiefs and the Giants. And I get that the Panthers are coming off a bye. I get that they would have upgraded their rating against the Giants, even though that was kind of a fluky win that was dependent on turnovers. But I just think that this Chiefs team, the best argument against them would be that their pass defense is shaky without Jalen Watson and with L'Jarius Sneed obviously having gone. But I just don't think Bryce Young is the man to exploit that pass defense the way that Josh Allen did. And I think that any notion of the Chiefs being complacent in a game like this would have been shaken by the loss against Buffalo. So I was just surprised that this line wasn't 13 and a half, pushing towards 2 touchdowns. So give me the Chiefs -11. What's your best bet?
Ooh, that's a fun one. I dig it, and I'll go with a dog, only dog on the card outside of a field goal that I think has a realistic chance to win this week, and that is the Indianapolis Colts taking on the mighty Detroit Lions here. There are the number, I cannot even get close to 7.5 here. I think this is more like a 5.5, 6-point margin. And I would say there's like a 5.5, 6-point margin between these teams on a neutral. And given the Colts a bit of a small home field bump here, Colts offense, I think, looked not just much more functional with Anthony Richardson last week against the Jets on the road than any of the Anthony Richardson starts that we saw in the first half of the year. And I think that there were 2 things at play. Richardson himself looked more comfortable, but even more than that, I think what Steichen and the offensive coordinator, the design of the offense itself looked to be much more kind of hand in glove with making things easy for Richardson, and I think his growth will continue through the later half of this season. And this is a nice opportunity to take on a Lions team that's missing a huge piece in Anzalone. And I think that just in general, this is a bad spot for the Lions, on top of my numbers agreeing that the Colts should be the side here. Lions got to get ready for an early game on Thursday. Every single game left on the Lions schedule matters more than this game. The expectation that the Lions are going to continue to just be a truck offensively, I kind of hold up a little bit of question mark as this is, again, like a little bit of a sneaky Colts defense that people think kind of is a throwaway, but has some bright spots and some kind of consistency and continuity. So right now, I think Colts are pretty clearly around a neutral rating, and I think the Lions are more like a +5, not like a +8, which is what you would have to say to get this number into the 7.5 range. So Colts plus look.
I like it. Yeah, I think Anthony Richardson made material improvements against the Jets. Best completion percentage over expected of his career. Best completion percentage, full stop, of his career. All right, we are done for today. Don't forget to check out NBCSports.com for more information to help you with your wagers. Thanks to those watching on the NBC Sports YouTube channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, don't forget to rate and subscribe. Also a reminder to find all your favorite NBC Sports shows on Amazon Music. Just head to amazon.com/NBC Sports. From myself and Drew, good luck this weekend.